Welcome to Dr. Roger and Friends, the bright side of longevity, hosted by 3 Ps in a podcast, Doc Roger, Teresa, and Danielle. Thanks for joining us for Coffee and Conversation.
Welcome to part 2 of A Little Help from My Friends, How Loneliness Impacts Our Health and Creative Approaches to Combat It. And today, we'll dive in deeper to those very creative approaches. We're glad you're with us.
So it's unavoidable that we are social creatures. We are herd animals. We absolutely need to be together. But there are times when we're not going to be. And in the current world, that can be a huge burden made worse by our own thoughts, as we've been talking about. A huge burden that prevents us from being the social animals that we absolutely must be. So, what can we tell people? How do we get over this? We all feel it, and let's accept it. Let's not make a big deal out of it. But when it gets to be our regular emotion, I think we know we got to, maybe we can give people a metaphorical boot in the pants with some other recommendations. And when we talked about social connection, I said, if you want to be a rock star, attract people, be a people magnet, and therefore be less likely to have loneliness or be lonely, I think if you just care about the other person, have compassion and empathy for what they may be going through, and perhaps listening rather than just being present when they share that sort of thing. You know, I'm of the mind that women live longer because they tend to share more than men, and that's one of the major reasons I think that they do. You know, I also talk about forgiveness. You know, you can get wrapped around your head and your negative feelings towards someone, or keep focusing on a negative thing that happened in the past with them, and that's a barrier. And then I like that one, you know, it's just so hard. I know I struggle with it, and that is give up the need to be right, because who wants to be connected with someone who always needs to be right? It's not fun, and therefore that person can very well end up right and lonely.
So true. That's such a good one. It's one of my favorites, I think. You know, there's a concept called social narcissism, and it's not the same thing as being a narcissist in general. It's more of a conversational narcissist, where enough about me, let's now talk about me kind of a person who's not showing genuine interest in another person. And I think they are probably very likely to be lonely. I think a lot of people do this without realizing it. And so I think that the key is to show genuine interest in another person, ask them good questions, and wait for a response, and really listen and make it about them. I think that really helps us connect with other people.
I'm thinking about a first date, you know, the cliche, the guy just goes on and on, and it's always the guy. But I think that's a sample of what you were saying, Teresa.
Yeah, there's some neat approaches popping up across the country. Just one example are men's sheds. So because for men to connect socially is so important, as we know, and we can stereotype and say they're less likely to do so. So men's sheds are literally tool sheds popping up across the country where men can go, build things or not, have coffee, just hang out. And I think approaches like these grassroots approaches can really go a long way in combating loneliness.
I remember a relationship expert was talking to guys, how to build a good relationship with a woman. And he said, number one, first one, listen, be on receive. You may not even be listening, but pretend to listen.
And I'm actually going to defend men, Roger.
Good.
Men and women.
Doesn't happen often.
I don't think people always do this intentionally. So if you tell me a story of something bad that happened, the thing that people tend to do is, oh yeah, I had something similar. And it almost seems like a one-upmanship. Even if the person doesn't intend it to be that way, they could very well have the intention of, I'm trying to show you I relate to you, So it's kind of finding the balance of I resonate with you, I understand, but yet giving somebody space so there's that give and take.
Yeah, that happens so much with grief, and grief is not a contest. Let it be about that person. End of story. Yeah.
That sounds like tremendous advice in a nutshell, isn't it? If you don't want to be lonely, you want to be connected to others, listen, really connect with them, really put yourself in their shoes. That definitely is dynamite prescription.
Absolutely.
You know, Roger, you were talking about compassion, and it was interesting. There was a study done several years ago where they had people do loving kindness meditation versus a mindful meditation. And if you don't know, a loving kindness meditation or a metta meditation is basically where you sit and you reflect, may I be happy, may you be happy, and you extend this to people you care about and even people you don't like very much. And when they did that for 3 days a week, 15 to 20 minutes, about an hour a week for 6 weeks, they measured all these conditions in their body, and they found that the pro-inflammatory genes were less. They increased the antiviral genes, so they were being protected from chronic conditions like arthritis and heart disease. And they had a better immune system to fight off the flu. That's in 6 weeks of just thinking about somebody else. So I think that's pretty remarkable. As far as if you volunteer or participate in random acts of kindness, that can go a long way to make not only you healthier, but to feel less lonely and more connected.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. You're going to tell us more in the future about that, I'm sure, especially during this series.
As much as you let me without driving you guys nuts.
Me letting you? I don't think so. That's not what the dynamic is here.
Hey,
I listen to you guys.
Roger, I heard you use a term the other day I have never heard. Social media sniping. What is that?
Well, I'm not a big one, but I deal with people who are on social media, Facebook and Twitter and all that, and I certainly hear about it. And that is that since you are not facing someone, there's always a reluctance when you're looking someone eye to eye to tell them that you don't like them and that they're a failure and a loser. You don't see that so much when you're looking, but if you're on social media, you get courage because you have distance and the virtual nature of it. And so that is really being a sniper. A sniper is hidden and does some damage a distance away without any really repercussions on their part because they're not in the presence of them. It's very dangerous, very common, especially with young people, very destructive. We see it's basically bullying, and we see some very horrible things happen to not only people's personality, but their very life is affected by this. So I think we have to build up a resilience to that, realizing that if this isn't something someone would say to my face, then this isn't worth listening to.
Good advice. And while technology can help us be more lonely, it can also facilitate human connection. We've talked about meetup.com and there's some other websites that simply help you find friends and make new friends. So lots happening out there for the good.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really interesting in our research for this podcast. We know about meetup.com. That's pretty popular, but there's Bumble, BFF, and Friend Match, and I just thought that was fascinating. So, there's all these dating sites for romantic connections, but what if you move into an area and you just want a buddy to go work out, or, you're going to an event and you don't want to go by yourself? So I just think there are some interesting opportunities where technology can be to our benefit.
Yeah, let's use it in a positive way. Absolutely. And we get a kites in it, right? If you've been lonely, you lose confidence in your ability to interact with others. It doesn't take very long. And so as you listen to this and say, okay, I don't want to be sick. I don't want to be lonely anymore. But woo, this is tough. Small steps, very, very small steps. If it's just to start texting a friend and have that lead, as earlier mentioned, just to a cup of coffee. It doesn't have to be a commitment for a day or two or a trip or whatever. It's just a few words in the presence of another person is a major beginning. You can start not in their presence, but have it lead to being in their presence. That's huge. Kaizen always is helpful. Just small steps, and that will, by definition, well, at least by experience, lead to where I think you can be a much healthier relationship and engaged with others.
Absolutely. Maybe go to TED.com for some big dose of inspiration. Lots of great TED Talks out there on this topic. Maybe start a gratitude journal. Just easy, simple, Kaizen-like steps to get started.
That's very powerful. I agree. The gratitude journal, it changes people's outlook for their entire day, rather than starting with a "oh, woe is me" journal.
And that's a recommendation from a number of positive psychologists. Send a text message, a gratitude email to somebody who did something for you, or even just a message saying, I've done this with friends I haven't talked to in months, and I've been so busy. I'll send them an email that says, I have nothing to update. I just want to let you know I was thinking about you. And usually it'll come back and say, I was feeling kind of down today, and your email just picked me right back up. So just looking for those simple Kaizen ways to connect with people, sending out the little text, a little email, talking with a stranger at the grocery store. I get into great conversations while I'm waiting in line at the grocery store, and you don't even realize you're waiting for 10 minutes. So, it's a good way to connect.
Powerful stuff. I think it really boils down for when you're to be in the presence of people and have it be more about them than you. That's a magical formula also, and that will lead to magnificent things and like-minded people who want to hear about you, and so you'll get to talk. But I think the fundamental thing is to approach an interaction and a relationship as about the other person.
Thank you for joining us for part 2 of this series, I Get By with a Little Help from My Friends. In part 3, we'll discuss tips for staying socially connected in a time of COVID. Thanks for joining us. You've been listening to Dr. Roger and Friends, The Bright Side of Longevity. If you like the show, please rate and review, and be sure to click to follow.